how could I change Japan? How could I change the world? Producing entrepreneurs globally, producing global leaders. So I started to study at Harvard Business Executive Education. Afterwards, I moved to Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley produced people from 0 to 1. So I started to become an accelerator. I'm now mentor of over 20 acceleration programs around the world. I'm helping startups to be more global. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Let's Talk About Tech. It's my great pleasure to introduce you to my dear friend, Crazy John Kojiro Moriwaka from Japan, who stopped by on his way back from the World Economic Forum 2024 in Davos. Welcome, John. Great to have you.
Thank you so much, Berthold. Guten Tag, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to be here.
It's very good to have you, and thanks for making the effort for stopping by here in Vienna. John, I would assume that World Economic Forum was vibrant this year, as always. What was your experience? Was it your first time?
Yes, it was my first time. I was honored to be invited by our venture capital called CVVC, based in Crypt Valley in Zug, in Switzerland. So I was appointed to be their advisor. We had a 5 days event for especially Web3 focused events.
Very nice. And international people, international crowd, very inspiring. What is the biggest takeaway for you for the Web3 space?
So we have our African investors, African startups, startups from Dubai, startups from Asia, also around the world, US, UK, Europe, of course. So we could meet so many different kinds of Web3 startups and Web3 investors.
Okay, just jump a little bit back in time and make a time travel.
Sure.
So when John grew up, right? How did your life start? You grew up near Fukuoka City, then went to university in Australia, then had a change of mind and you wanted to go to Harvard, and then you started to change the mindset in Japan and become an evangelist for the global mindset. How did that come about? Explain us a little bit. Who's John and why is John the crazy John?
Yeah, so I couldn't enter any universities in Japan. So I was kind of kicked out and sent to Australia to study. So I couldn't speak English at all. And however, I make friends with people very easily, like how we met, right, in Zug. So English I picked up very quickly. I entered the best university in Australia called Sydney University. However, before 3 months graduation, I entered hip hop world. So I was managing hip hop record label in Tokyo. And then I started to work on my family business, medical device company. And then how could I change Japan? How could I change the world? So producing entrepreneurs globally, producing global leaders globally. So I started to study at Harvard Business School, executive education. Afterwards, I moved to Silicon Valley because Silicon Valley produced people from 0 to 1. And Harvard produced 100 to 1,000. So leaders and entrepreneurs are different. So I started to become an accelerator. I'm now mentor of over 20 acceleration programs around the world. So I'm helping startups to be more global. Yeah.
And why did you decide to bring all those international programs to Japan, right, and introduce those other than just inventing your own program?
Actually, I didn't bring them. They already came to Japan by themselves or somebody brought them. I became their mentor.
Okay.
And I also established a few acceleration programs in Japan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you think is the biggest difficulty for an international company or an investor coming to Japan? They want to enter the market, just as Venionaire is doing it at the moment, right? What are the biggest pitfalls? What are the biggest challenges? And how can you help them to overcome those?
So there's a culture gap, people say. However, culture, you can understand if you can speak their language. So speaking Japanese language to Japanese customers or Japanese partners, it will be much, much easier. Especially many startups want to raise money from Japanese investors. However, Japanese investors, most of them don't speak English. And also startups from overseas don't speak Japanese. So that's why both sides need me to translate their both culture and language. So I can actually enjoy doing so. However, both parties need to be able to speak their language.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you make them communicate in the
Yeah.
right way.
Yeah.
You make them understand each other.
Yeah.
And you help them to basically move together and achieve goals.
Yes, but haven't been like a successful for doing the global open innovation projects because
Mhm.
both parties don't really try too hard.
Mhm.
They just give up after 3 times meetings.
Mhm.
Like foreign startups even never prepare Japanese pitch decks.
Mhm.
I tell them, hey, let's make the Japanese pitch decks, but they don't think this is necessary because they only have English pitch deck.
Yes.
And the Japanese investors, when they see them only English pitch deck, of course they don't really appreciate and they don't get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's also difficult, right, to understand this very technical language.
Yes.
Most of the times. And on the other hand, you support a lot of those Japanese high-end talents, right, that want to conquer the world.
Yeah.
And you help them to pitch internationally.
Yes.
You help them to enter into markets.
Yeah.
You've built your network. What are you doing for the Japanese that want to go global?
Yeah. So, for example, one of the great food tech companies from Nagoya University, I helped them for pitch training for 3 months. They won the competition at the Vivatech in France. Another friend of mine, medical AI company from Japan, when they are going to Dubai for healthcare event, I trained them for like only a couple of days, and they won the Microsoft award.
Wow.
So because I'm advisor of many. Okay, one more thing. I'm advisor of a few different venture capitals around the world and also mentor of over 20 accelerators. Now I kind of see what things judges are looking for. So I'm become very, very good at training Japanese startups how to pitch to investors globally.
And what do you think is the biggest difference in pitching to a Japanese investor to, let's say, a British investor? Is there a different approach or a different kind of way you tell the story?
All about I think traction. You
Yeah.
know, startups need to have a good traction, like their homework. They have be able to talk to their own users and the customers and increase the numbers. Not only revenues, but also the traction. Like many users' voices they should correct, and the CEOs should be able to explain why the number is going up, why they don't have many customers or not. So my pitch, my advice to them is do the homework. Go to talk to, not only go to before talking to investors, go to talk to the on the road and talk to customers and grab their heart. If the customers not impressed by the CEOs should be able to be a number one salesman.
Yes, of course. Founder sales is super important, right? And if you cannot convince your first customers, you cannot convince any investors. And I would assume also in Japan, everybody looks about the KPIs, right? They compare. The competition is super tough.
Yeah.
And internationally, it's even tougher.
Yeah.
So yeah, very interesting. So what's your advice to Japanese startups to pitch in global competitions?
I tell them to speak loudly and with their body language. Because Japanese people tend to be very shy and not only look for one particular direction, but I tell them to speak like many different angles and also looking at the audience. I tell them you are superstar. Think you are already unicorn founder or you are rapper or you are singer or even you are president. So everybody loves you. Everybody waiting for you to be like loud and go crazy. Yeah, because they tend to be very, very shy.
And become the next global champion out of Japan. I mean, there's so many big Japanese brands, right? We are using every day, right? I just this morning played with my kids on the Nintendo.
Okay.
Yeah? So there's a lot of things from Japan that made international champions.
Yeah.
A little bit like Austria. We also do have a couple of those global champions.
That's
just
good.
here, nobody knows that these companies are from Austria.
Yeah.
We call them hidden champions.
Right.
Now, what I wanted to ask you is, you have been building this bridge for Japanese startups to go global, to bring global investors and startups to Japan. But you've also done this work with corporates. So you've worked 10 years with corporates and corporate startup engagements.
Yes.
And you taught corporates how to work with startups.
Yes.
Is that difficult for a corporate to work with startups?
Yeah. So now corporates. So I started my company about 10 years ago and start to train large corporations like Fuji Xerox, Deloitte, Hitachi, and those big corporates, because those at that time they are not ready. They were not ready to collaborate with startups. But now those large corporations are ready because they need innovation by collaborating with startups. So 10 years ago was very difficult for me to convince them. So I did many workshops and I was asking them to be actually pretend they are entrepreneurs. So experience like how startup feels. So I was training them how to pitch to investors.
Okay.
So once you are acting the role, even the practice, they start to understand it, how they feel it.
Okay, so you used some sort of a role play to
Yes.
make them feel uncomfortable, just like the startup would when they would talk with the corporate.
Yes.
That's a very interesting approach.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did many pitch events for the corporation people. Yeah.
Okay. And now you're involved also, just like us, Venionaire Capital. We're super proud ambassadors of SusHi Tech in Tokyo,
Yes.
which is taking place this year again.
Yeah.
I've heard you are also an ambassador. You're
Yes.
an advocate. You bring hundreds of people every
Yes.
year.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about SusHi Tech in Tokyo and why Tokyo municipality is striving so hard to make Tokyo globally #1 again.
Yeah. So my company, Silicon Valley Ventures, is an advisor for CVCs, venture capitals, large corporations, and startups. We are proud to be their ambassador. Also, I'm a director of Startup Grind Tokyo, Nagoya, Fukuoka chapter. So 3 of chapters, we became their ambassadors. And SusHi Tech itself aiming to get over 500,000 people coming to Tokyo on 25th to 26th of May. So people watching this, please come to Tokyo. And we're gonna enjoy the global networking event. So SusHi Tech is all about building a global startup ecosystems. So people are all crazy entrepreneurs, investors, accelerators, and academia, researchers. Everyone is welcome. It's gonna be like a Davos for startups, I think.
Yeah, I was there last year, right? Because we have a collaboration with World Venture Forum together with, it used to be SusHi Tech Tokyo, used to be the City Tech Tokyo conference, right?
Yes.
Now it's SusHi Tech Tokyo. And for us, it was amazing to be there. It was, I think, 10,000 attendees, very internationally, very welcoming. I thought it's going to be much more difficult, right? Because new language, very big city. But everything was so well organized and so welcoming. We had a really good time and we really made some friends.
20,000.
Even 20,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's gigantic, but in a city of the size of Tokyo, right? If it's 10 or 20,000, you don't really feel. It's just everything is just so big on scale, right? It's fantastic. If you have never been to Tokyo, I highly recommend to look into our bio, and you'll find a link. We'll hook you up with a discount code as we are ambassadors of SusHi Tech, and we'd hope to see you there. Join us to the conference. You'll meet Crazy John. You'll meet myself. I'm very much looking forward to see you soon on your side of the planet.
Yes.
It was great having you.
Thank you so much, Bas Horst. I really enjoyed talking to you. And hope everyone, we can provide the innovation together for healthier life and a crazy life. Thank you.
Stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Bye.